By the end of today's video, we're going to have this card view up here, the layout set up for it. We will not have it set up for connecting to Firebase with these buttons and actually have it functioning, but just getting the layout done in this video is the goal. So let's start by looking at our XD file right here. This is the file we created back in the beginning, and we have basically done mostly everything in here. One major piece that hasn't been done yet is this actual card that we're going to do today. So you'll notice the card is on the home page, and it'll have, you know, your upcoming trip. It'll have the information for that right here. Also on all your trip detail pages, that card is also, that widget card is also going to be right here. And then once your trip is converted, or once your trip is over, so this trip detail page would essentially be the same view as this, but after your trip, we're going to have that card here again, just slightly modified. So for that reason, I just want to show you that this card will be used multiple times in the app, so that should immediately be telling you to make this into a widget of its own, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So let's get started with that. All right, so we're here on the main page. This is the home page and our home view code. So right now, the only thing that's actually being built in our build widget here on the home page is just this stream builder. So we're going to add another widget above this, which we haven't yet created, but let's go ahead and just get that part kind of set up right now. So you can see that this is only returning a container. So let's first wrap this stream builder in a column, and that way we can have a few different widgets displaying here. So add a column there, and then in the column we can just, for the time being, we can add a card widget. If you save this, you'll notice the stream builder is no longer there. We do actually need to wrap this in a widget, in an expanded widget. So just wrap this in expanded. And now you'll see we have this new card widget right above our main list here. All right, so this card here is actually going to be what we would want our main widget right here to look like. So we could build that card out right here, but as we kind of mentioned just before this, we do want this to be reusable. So let's create it as its own widget file. This is going to do kind of two things. Firstly, we'll be able to reuse it. Secondly, it'll keep our code a little bit cleaner, because this widget itself, this card widget, is going to take up a good bit of code just to lay out and get the functioning working properly. Anyway, let's call this the calculator widget. All right, and then at its very simplest, we can just import material. And then let's create this as a stateless widget right now, and we'll call this the same as what we named the file is calculator widget. And now this is returning a container, which we can change out with a card. Actually, let's just change it with this card that we created over here and return that out. And return that out here. Go back into our page right here, and firstly import that new file that we just created, which is going to be under widgets, and then calculator widget. And then we can, instead of calling card here, we can just call the calculator widget. And you'll see nothing actually changes, which is good. That's what we would expect. If you change this to something else, you'll see it does update there. So that's what we want, at least for creating the widget. Now we need to actually build this out. But at least now we'll be able to build it out while actually seeing it in our live updates. So to start building this, let's create one row for this top part, and then we'll create two columns within that row for these pieces of information. So go ahead and remove the text here, and we're going to create, we'll create a row first. And then within that row, we can add text and that text can be just $800 for the first one, and we'll do the same thing with 200 below that. There you go. Oh, that still says 800, so 200 below that. Cool. So you can see it's very small there. That can be updated with a bit of style. Now you'll see our row, all the text is just pushed to the left there. So to get that centered, we can actually do the main, and this is in the row above the children element. We can do the main axis alignment and then do space evenly. Yes, space evenly like that. Now you'll see those are kind of split the way we'd want them. We also would want to set the background color of this. So there's no actual, you can't actually set the background color of a row. So you'll have to wrap this row into a container. And then within this container, we can just set color to be colors dot green, if that's what we're going to do. We could do cayenne, that's fine. So this blue element here, we want that information below here. So each of these has kind of a title below it, saved and needed. The best way to do that is actually going to be to wrap each one of these, create a column for each one of these, and then basically have two pieces of information in that column. So inside this first text element, just go ahead and wrap that in a column. And then the column is going to have two elements. So the first one is this text. If you copy this and place it below, and then we can kind of just edit what we need. So needed is going to be the word, and we can make the font 20. If you save that, you can see that lined up quite nicely. We'll do the same thing with the one right below it, wrap it in a column, and then pretty much copy this and put it down here. And we could put, I think we're using, okay, this one is saved, and this one is needed. So that looks pretty good. The last thing for this top row is we want this bar here. The bar will go in between these two columns, and we're going to create this with a container first. And then within this container, we're going to use the, we'll actually set the height of this. Let's go with 80. And we're going to use Flutter has a nice built-in vertical divider. So set that as the child of this container. It's just a vertical divider here. And we're going to set the color of that to be white, as well as the thickness of that to be 5. So if you save that, things are kind of starting to come together. One thing is the padding. This has a little bit more padding on the top and the bottom. I think the left and the right are probably okay. So we can wrap this whole row in padding, and then instead of doing all, do only, and then we can set the top to be probably more like 12 is better, and the bottom to also be 12. All right, that pretty much looks like this up here. I don't think the font is exactly the same, but that's fine. These are kind of still those test fonts from one of those last videos. All right, so now we can create this bottom row here. All right, so to add a second row to this, we actually want this whole container, because if you'll notice this container is actually what sets the color, and then within that has the padding. So the next row we want to not even have this color, so we're going to actually want it to be another container below this row. So all that to say, this container is what we actually want to wrap with a another widget, which would be a column, and then that column can have multiple of these containers essentially. It is a little bit confusing. A lot of times when I'm building like a more complex layout like this one, I like to go from like kind of like the inside out. So you know, we started building these numbers, and then we kind of built out all the way to this row. It wouldn't make sense, or it doesn't make sense to me to like start with the padding and the container, because those are kind of, you kind of like add those outside of this stuff. But anyway, basically everything we built so far is really this top row, right? So we just want this top row to be inside a column. And then this container, which we already created, let's just go ahead and minimize this over here so that all that code is right there and we can see it. But now, as I was saying, I'm not going to start with another container directly. I'm going to start with another row here. And then we will add a container, but it's easier, I think, to wrap them with that. So this will be the children of this. And our next row would technically be the save additional, but I think we can just leave that out. I don't really think we need that. Let's just go straight to this money field. So in this row, we're going to have two main elements. We're going to have this text field and the button. So if you have been following along, you'll know we already have a widget that we created, a custom widget for money, and that's our money text field widget. So let's go ahead and use that. Now this takes a few parameters. One of them, I guess two parameters. One is the text editing controller and the other one is the helper text. Firstly, we are going to need to import this, and then we're going to need to create a text editing controller. So do that all the way up at the top here of our class, and it's just going to be a text editing controller that we can call really anything, but I'll call it the money controller. And that's going to equal just a text editing controller. All right, so give that money controller as the controller parameter here, and the second one is the helper text. And this you'll notice is not set here, so we don't really need to set it, but maybe we can do save additional there, or even add, yeah, save. I think that would work fine. If you save it, you'll see it doesn't quite work. So this is a widget that needs to be actually wrapped in the expanded to give it its size. So wrap this in another widget, and this will be expanded, similar to the issue that we had on our homepage earlier. If you reformat this stuff, it actually expands that. So add a comma here and another one here. If you hit Command Option L on a Mac, it'll reformat the stuff for you to the Flutter Dart way. I'm gonna collapse that again. So you can see that looks decent, but we want that button as well. So go ahead and just after the expanded area here, we can do a raised button, and then that can have the text of let's see, this will just be save, I believe, right? Saved. All right, then the color of this we can set to white, and the text color we can set to, we're actually going to want to make this whole background color a darker version of this, similar to how we have here. I guess we're going to go with the blues this time, but we will do a larger update on everything before we go live. We can do just regular blue. Let's see what that looks like. Actually, that's not going to look good because the color of the text field right now is blue. So let's make this actually. We could try this deep orange accent. The color isn't a huge deal. You'll see the button is grayed out right there, and that's because it does need an on pressed action. So let's just create that and print out but save pressed. Cool, so the text is orange there. Let's actually go ahead and set, if we're going to use orange, let's set orange to be the color of this entire block here, like the background. Again, we're going to have to do that in a container because the row will not allow us to do that. So in the container, we can just set the color equals that dark orange. All right, so that color is not great. Maybe we'll go deep purple. Cool. Color, I don't know. The color is not as important right now, but that's definitely going to need to change. Lastly, let's go ahead and add some padding around this row. and the padding will fix up the issue of the button being all the way to the right here, as well as how close it is over here on the left. So again, we only are going to want the left and right padding. So left, let's go ahead and add probably 20 on the left. I don't think we actually need to make it as small as this is, but if we wanted to, that would just be more padding on the left. Right, we can do a little bit more on the right because the button we do want to bring over kind of closer to the middle. So let's go with a 50. And yeah, that looks all right. I think we'll just leave it like that. Let me find a better color to display this at. All right, that still obviously is not what we're gonna finish it with, but it's a little bit better to see stuff for now. All right, moving on, we have these buttons here. Those are the last piece we're gonna add, and again, you can collapse this container out. We're pretty much going to be doing the same thing with the container, but as I mentioned, I am going to start with the row, and then in here we'll do the children. And basically how we created this button here, let's just copy that because it is going to be essentially the same thing since these aren't hooked up yet. Instead of saved, we can put a dollar amount. So let's do 25, I suppose, can be the first one, and we do have to escape that dollar sign. If you save that down here, you'll see a few things are wrong with it, but I think we can create all the buttons right now. If we have this one, let's just create 2 more, and basically they're exactly the same. So depending on how, once we hook this up, probably these are going to become functions of their own, and they'll be more reusable. But for the time being, we're just going to leave it as copied code like that. But I do want you to understand that like this is probably not the best way to do this, rewriting it 3 times like that. Really what you would do is create a function and then call it 3 times with the different $25 or with the different text parameter. All right, so wrap this row with a container, and then in this container we can actually set the color to be we'll go with this same yellow if that's what we're doing now. I suppose I should have just stayed with the greens, but either way, now it looks like that row is part of there. The last thing is to actually set that that main axis alignment to be evenly spaced. And then if you save that, the buttons go down there. One more thing is to wrap some padding around this row. We really only want it on the bottom, so do only and then bottom. And I'm thinking maybe we want 20 here, and that should set it up. All right, cool. So this gets us our layout set up for what our mockup is. A few things to note: the mockup obviously is not exactly copied, so it doesn't look exactly how it did in the mockup. You could make it look exactly how it looks in the mockup, but I think as things evolve and things change, partly it's because it's easier to not make it exactly the same. Another part is this obviously is not going to be the colors. I think we're going to have to come up with a consistent color scheme for the app, and it'll just be easier to do that all at once later. All right, one more thing. If you haven't already gotten a custom domain name set up for your app or project that you're working on currently, I have a link down below that has all these cool deals from Namecheap. Right now they have a bunch of special offers going on for custom domains and hosting. So if you need to get your portfolio set up and or you want a custom domain for your app, definitely check out that link and set it up through Namecheap. It's super easy and honestly pretty cheap. All right, That's going to be it for this video. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. All right, ciao for now.